to Revelations Through Language, the channel where we look into the deeper meanings behind the phrase and words that we use today through the lens of faith. Come with me as we embark on a journey to discover the truth. Hi, all. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another episode. So, today we'll be looking at why your life does not belong to you and where we all come from. So, this is a thought that I initially had maybe about 6 months or so ago when the thoughts initially started, and then as time has gone on, the idea has developed and it's led to a revelation to where I am now as I record. So today, the word anyway that came to mind, I started using it as my basis of my theory and my analysis was the word parents. So let me show you my thought process and how I got to my conclusions and my theories. So, how I initially started looking at this was from a faith perspective, of course, knowing that obviously, okay, once you've given your life to God, you live your life as if though it's not yours, and you live it to please your heavenly Father, who's your parent. And then that's when the word parents itself came to me one day as I was reading or as I was meditating, and then that's when I started deconstructing that word once again and breaking it down and looking at it for what it was. So when you look at the word parents itself, when we typically say parents, we just think one word, we don't see anything of it. But this time when I saw the word, or when it came to mind, I saw two words within the word, and I started deconstructing and going a bit deeper and coming into certain conclusions. So when you take the word parents itself, so I noticed that we've got two words in there. So we've got pair, meaning two, and then we've got rents. So when you say the two separate words really quickly together as well, parents, it sounds exactly the same. My accent might sound a little bit funnier, but it's exactly the same. So when I separate the two words, and when you take the two words apart, so you've got pair, which is a set of two things used together or regarded as a unit. Hence why we also say family unit. So that's a possible reason also why we say family unit. So pair, you've got the two, so you've got mum, dad, or even a man, woman, even to the very basics of biology, you can say sperm, egg, you've got two. And then you've got rent. And then obviously, if you rent something, it's something that you pay someone for the use of something. So typically, we obviously say if you rent, we're talking about it in terms of living in a property. So, and if you live in a property that you're renting, then that makes you a tenant. And if you look at the word tenant, it's described as a person who occupies land or property rented from a landlord. And you can see on the screen that I've crucially highlighted lord in red in landlord. So is that an accident that landlords are those who oversee the properties that are rented by tenants? Maybe, maybe not. But from there, that's when I also started looking at it from that perspective and kind of developing that idea. So if parents are the tenants of the children, you realize that someone who's a tenant doesn't own the property. And when it comes to ownership, obviously people are not items, are not inanimate items. So we don't say you own people, because if you own people, you're possessive. That's a possession, and people, especially children, are not possessions. Well, even it doesn't matter whether they're children or they've grown up. No, they're not your possessions. But what a tenant is for a property that they rent is they're responsible. And responsibility. So yeah, being a parent is a big responsibility, and the child being what you're responsible for. And hence why, so when you look after a child, or when you look after a property, or you rent a property when you're a tenant, because you're responsible and you're holding on to that property for the time being as it does not belong to you, that makes you a custodian. And that's why people often ask who's in custody of this child, or if a child is being adopted by someone else, the custody goes over to the adoptive parents. And being a custodian, it's very important to remember that someone who's a custodian eventually has to let go of that child in this case. So a good custodian, like I mentioned, is responsible for looking after that child and treats it like it's their own, because one day they know that they're going to have to let go. And when you look at children, for example, who have overprotective parents or overpossessive parents, those children typically run into so many troubles further down in life, because their parents have sheltered them and coddled them and not prepared them for the world by not letting them go, or not giving them enough freedom for the child to figure things out by themselves. And they typically don't do as well in the world because the parents have been more possessive. So parents who are responsible, they look after that child like it's their own, because they are, but they also know that at some point they have to let that child go. And looking after a child that way, it allows the parents to let that child go easier, and it also allows the child to move easier for them to face the world. And as we all face the world, it's important to remember that we all have parents, and with parents, whether we like them or don't like them, or whether we were planned or unplanned, or no matter how we came into the world, no one chose to tell their parents to bring them into the world. So because our parents chose us to come into the world, that means we were all chosen. And then I started working backwards and realizing that because none of us chose to be born into the world, because we didn't get to decide that we wanted to be children, that in turn means everyone, because everyone grows up, that was also chosen. And if we were all chosen, then we have to ask, who are we chosen by? So obviously we're chosen by our parents, but once again, our parents were also once children themselves. So where did they come from? And then if you can keep going back and back and back, you'll be going forever. And then that's where obviously, with parents being the renters or the tenants, we all have a landlord. And that's where I believe we all come from. And if we go to the Bible and look at a few verses, it supports this claim. So in Jeremiah 1, verses 5, it reads, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." So this not only indicates that God created us, but it also indicates that before we were born, he created us to be special, hence why he set us apart. And in Psalm 139, verse 13, it also reads, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." So looking at those verses and knowing that we were chosen, it's for all of us when we have our moments of doubt or weaknesses and you ever wonder why you're here. Remember, you were chosen, so find out what you were chosen to do. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. In the meantime, check out some of my other deep dives. Until the next one, God bless.